other than Ruthie Bloom, former advisor at the office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Ruthie, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox for this breaking news alert.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you. So a lot that I just mentioned, we know the IDF operations ramping up out there in the West Bank. For those that don't understand the reasoning for this operation, could you provide some perspective, please?
Oh, absolutely. This is yet another front in the ongoing war against the Jewish state. These are bloodthirsty terrorists in the West Bank, what we call Judea and Samaria. And the raid was on terrorists and their weapons. Now, as all of these terrorists do, they hide their weapons and explosive factories in mosques and schools and civilian infrastructure. And in this case, they found a huge explosives lab in a mosque and tons of weapons. Now, these weapons and explosives are all aimed at murdering Israelis. And on the October 7th massacre was from Hamas in Gaza. But you see, we also have Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists in the West Bank. And they are also planning and have been committing many acts of terrorism, even since October 7th. We don't hear as much about that. But they're ramping up those attacks. And I will say one of the Hamas honchos abroad is calling on those Palestinians in the West Bank to start up again with suicide bombings. And we actually had a suicide bombing in Tel Aviv. I would say it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago. So, you know, it's not just some imaginary thing. And what's more, they're not just militants, they're terrorists, they're killers, and their aim is to annihilate the state of Israel.
Thank you so much for that detailed explanation, Ruthie. So look, one thing that stood out for me when I was doing my research this morning, this well-known local commander, one of the many that's been killed during this IDF operation out there along the West Bank. We're still waiting for Palestinian authorities to confirm, but we are hearing from the Associated Press that this well-known local commander was thought to have already been eliminated. And then he shows up randomly at a funeral. I would love to know, what was the response from people when this happened out in that region?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not the first time that's happened where there was a case of mistaken identity. That wasn't purposeful. I imagine at the time, you know, I don't have inside information from the Israeli military, but I imagine that what happened is there was some kind of attack, and it was assumed that this particular terrorist was killed in it. Maybe they found DNA of his or something like that. And then it turned out that he wasn't dead. And as I said, we've had a couple of incidents like that before, not many, because usually we're extremely careful about identifying who the dead are, both on our side and among the Palestinian terrorists.
Ruthie, we know at this hour, the IDF, they continue with their operation out in the West Bank. That's what that live picture out is in Jenin there. In that area, I want to ask you, what has been the response to this? I know it's very conflicting, as some feel like these invasions continue to happen and there's no safe place as this war continues. But I understand that from the very beginning, the IDF has been adamant that they will not stop until Hamas and other terroristic organizations are defeated.
Okay, well, I'll just preface the answer by saying that the IDF takes more precautions to avoid civilian casualties than any other army in the history of the world. All right, we know that from military experts. That's one thing. Second, there is a humanitarian corridor for goods to enter. The fact that Hamas constantly steals those goods in order to sell it back to innocent Palestinians in Gaza at exorbitant prices, that's because they're a terrorist group that doesn't care about, it's not just that they want to kill Jews, but they also don't care about their own people. They hide behind them, they starve them, etc. The operations in Gaza have to continue. By the way, it's through those operations that we rescued yet another live hostage. The day before yesterday, a Bedouin father of 11 It was amazing. He had been starved, and he had been operated on October 7th. He had been shot in the leg, and he tells of having the bullet removed in Gaza without anesthesia. He also spent most of his time in pitch darkness in the tunnels, and we rescued him. We would not have been able to do that if we weren't in the southern part of Gaza, continuing the operations to search the tunnels, both for hostages and for terrorists, and to find and to try to destroy those tunnels when they're empty.
Ruthie Bloom, always a pleasure speaking with you here on Live Now. We appreciate your candidness and your perspective on this topic. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go? Anything we need to be aware of? As we know, this is a full-scale operation.
Yes, well, I would just like to add that, I think people don't realize two things about Israel. How tiny it is. It's like one state in the United States, very, very small. And so when you have enemies around your borders and even within them, just imagine what it's like to try to fight them off, and to top that all off right now, to also rescue what are now 107 remaining hostages, alive and dead, in the tunnels of Gaza.
Ruthie, we appreciate you joining us bright and early for this breaking news alert. Always a pleasure speaking with you. You enjoy the rest of your day, and of course, stay safe.
The same. Thank you.
Thank you. Giving you a live look as we further